All right. So when it comes to cosine law, it tackles questions that sine law cannot. Remember that. Okay. So this is on page 23. So recall that angle, angle, side, angle, side, angle, or side, side, angle. Don't really worry about remembering that, but when you have a pair, you have to use sine law. Okay. Recall that. Remember that there's three triangles, three scenarios where you're going to have to use sine law to get you started. Okay, 23. Two other cases that you may encounter and cannot be solved by sine law. Remember that, cannot be solved by sine law. Two other cases that cannot be solved by sine law are the following: side, 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 or side, angle, side. So if you know every single, if you have numbers for all side lengths, doesn't matter if it's an acute or if it's an obtuse, right? We're mixing it up. We're not just going to stick with acute. That is cosine law, guaranteed. And think about it. Is it possible to get a pair in this scenario if all you have is sides? No, you don't have an angle across any of the sides, so no pair. That's another way of determining this must be cosine law. Side, angle, side, pick any two sides. Okay, let's say we know this side here and this side. The angle is in between the two sides. That's why it's important to go SAS. So this angle will be given to you. Or if you look at this triangle, pick any two sides. I'm going to pick this one and this one. Let's say these two are given to you and you know the angle that is in between them. It's like a sandwich. Think about it that way. Then it's going to be cosine law too. And just remember, can you get a pair in either one of these cases? And the answer is no. You don't have an angle across any of the sides. Therefore, it's cosine law. So no matter which way you look at it, that's what it's going to be. So this is side, angle, side, right? Angle between sides. I will say it that way. Angle is between E/W sides. Figure out quick ways to take notes, because if you do go to post-secondary, they don't slow down, right? They just go, and so just don't worry about writing it out neatly. You just want to jot it down, okay? All right, so knowing this, if we do not have a pair, which means we need to use cosine law, the first one, side, angle, side, two sides, the angle sandwich between them, this is what I'm going to use a red pen for this one. So let's say you know this side and this side, and you know that angle right here. If that were the case, if you have this, the only angle that is there is x, okay? You are able to solve for the side that's across from it, this one right here. So you would start, this is the formula for cosine law. X squared, I use red for that one, is equal to these other two sides squared and added. So it doesn't matter which order you do them in. C squared plus y squared, make sure you square them, minus 2 times c times y times cosine of angle x. Guess what? Angle x is across from it. That's why I use red as well. That is the formula you would use to solve for x, right? So I will box this in. This is the SAS case. And you might wonder, well, what if I knew these two sides and C is the angle that I was given? Well, guess what? Then you'd be able to solve for side C. Okay? And so I will give you the variations of this. $20 right there. Anyways, if you want to find C, right, you would go C squared. There's going to be some blah, blah, blah here, right? Two sides added. So if you're trying to find C, that means that these two sides will be the ones that you know. So in any order of your choice, just make sure you square and add them. And then we go minus 2 times what? What's the pattern from the top? Did you see that? There's C and Y. Guess what? They come up here again. So if it's X and Y, then those are the two sides that we multiply. Times cosine of what? Which angle? C. That's why I use a red pen for that one. One more variation. We've solved for X, we've solved for C. Now we're going to solve for Y. And you're like, how can you solve? It's weird, Mr. Erickson. It's like weird. Just don't worry about it. We'll plug in and then we'll solve, okay? Here's two things that we're going to add. Then we're going to subtract 2. Let's go bracket, cosine of something. That's the pattern. What's going to go at the back here? Which angle? Y. The one that's across from this one. That's what that means. Okay. There we go. So if you're trying to solve for Y, which is this side right here, that means that you would know C and X. X and C. It doesn't matter. So C squared, X squared, CX, and there you go. That's the pattern. I don't want you to have all 3 on your study sheet. That's not necessary. I think after the first one, the one that I boxed in, you're good to go. Okay? We're good? All right. Let's go to the next one. This is the SAS. That's what you're going to use here. The next one is SSS. If you already know all 3 sides, what is left to solve? Angles, right? That's all you have left. Okay. So these formulas are a variation of the one I just gave you. Okay, so let's say, what am I going to do here? I'm going to pretend, well, we know all 3 sides, right? So let's say you want to solve for angle C, let's say. You want to solve for this one. Then you have to start this way. Cosine of angle C. I use a red pen for that because it's going to be important. You're going to add 2 things and you're going to subtract something at the end here. And then you're going to have a line like this. So that's going to be your numerator. And the denominator will be 2 times. Okay. The most important number that you can plug in here. You ready for this one? If you want to find side C, then you must have, sorry, angle C. I take it back. If you want to solve for angle C, then you must put C squared, the side, back here. If you get that right, you already won half the battle. That means that these 2 sides are the ones that you're going to square and add. And guess what? X and Y come back down here. Which side does not show up again once you subtract it? Guess what? It's subtracted. You see that? It only shows up once. And these 2 that are squared and added, they show up back here multiplying. So this is your SSS scenario. Okay. Let's come up with a pattern for the rest. Because guess what? You have a choice. You can solve for any angle you would like, okay? Because you know all three sides. So what would cosine, if you wanted to solve for angle y, let's say, you would go something plus something else minus over, let's just do that part for now. What would go back here? Y squared. And that means, right, so you're solving, right now you're saying you're solving for this angle. So the side across from it is here. So c and x go over here. So this will be c squared, x squared. Guess what? C and x come back down here. One more. Cosine of, which one? We haven't done x yet. So cosine of angle x. Do you think you can fill this in? Take a moment. Fill that in. See if you can do the pattern. Use a pencil. Well, if I want to find angle x, then side x squared better come back here. So if x is already used, then I've c and y left. So I'm going to go c squared plus y squared. And then at the bottom, it's 2 times c times y. There we go. What does it say here? This is important. I'm going to highlight this. Make sure you do too. Note, a negative numerator indicates that the angle will be obtuse. Okay. And another, I'm going to use a different highlighter for this one. When solving in a side-side-side triangle, start with the largest angle. More on this later. Let's see if you're awake. How would you know what the largest angle is in a triangle? Where would it be located? Look for the largest side, longest side, and across from the longest side, that's where your largest angle will be located. Okay, so and another thing here is, if you consider a horizontal line, there's the acute side and there's the obtuse side. Okay, this is obtuse here. If cosine, if you crunch the numerator and it's negative, you're gonna get an obtuse. If the numerator is positive, you're gonna get an acute angle. So cosine distinguishes between acute and obtuse. Sine law doesn't. Sine law would not be able to make a distinction. It will always give you an acute angle no matter what. So that's where the problem arises. More on this later. Okay. I think I have to add another note. Where am I going to add this? I think I'm going to add it right in here. You will use cosine inverse. If you want to solve that, you have to use cosine inverse at one point at the end. Just before your final answer, you will use cosine inverse when you do one of these. Okay. So what's the difference between sine law and cosine law? Well, they tackle different ones, and the formulas look different. Whereas sine law, you start the exact same way every single time. Okay, that's the difference between sine law and cosine law. So you need to make sure these formulas are on your study sheet. So let's put these to practice. Enough theory now. So let's go to 25. Notice what it says in this box here. You need to determine which law you will use to start. Only one of them can be used at the beginning. So that's important here. Okay. All right. So let's see here. We were asked to solve for side P, solve for angle R and Q, calculate the height of the triangle. A lot of stuff going on here. Don't focus on the entire thing. Just start with this part. You look at this. I'm going to use my red pen here. I don't know, do you see that this is a side angle side? Are you able to see that? Because you know this side, you know the angle in between, and you know that one. So this is a side angle side. You're going to use cosine law. No pair. Remember, you don't have a pair. So that's another indicator. I can't use sine law here. It's just a no-go. So let's use the formula to help us develop a pattern. If you go back and you look for SAS, it states that to solve for that side, yeah, we would have to go, let's go, if this is capital R, then this is lowercase r. If this is capital Q, this is lowercase q. Let's first use letters. So we would have to go r squared plus q squared minus 2 times r times q times cosine of, if we're trying to solve for side P, then you have capital P back here. You don't have to do this. I don't require this step on an assessment, but for notes purposes, we're going to first develop our pattern. So here we go. P squared is equal to r squared, so that'll be 5 squared plus 8 squared minus 2 times 5 times 8 times cosine of angle P, which is 70 degrees. So everything is known to you on the right-hand side. So the next step is, watch this, P is equal to square root of whatever this is. And because we have awesome calculators, we can actually enter all of this in one shot. So grab your calculators. Clear what's on my screen. So I'm just going to enter it exactly the way it is. 5 squared plus 8 squared minus, watch this, 2 times 5 times 8 times cosine of 70. I entered it exactly the way it was there. It will be decimals down the road, guaranteed, but right now we have whole numbers. You hit enter, and that's what you get inside the root here, 61,638 dot dot dot. So you have to take the root yet. By the way, if you just said 61, it would be way off, right? You've got 5, 8, 61. How is that, right? So it has to kind of match the situation. Second root, right? Take the root of that, paste that in. You get 7.85 centimeters. There we go. We've answered A. This is A right here. is B asking me for here? B. It's asking for solving for angles R and Q. I'm not, yeah. Oh, is yours set to degrees? We're good? Okay, I'm biased today. I'm into cosine law mode today. Okay, so watch this. If we solve for this side, we now have side, 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 correct? We now have a side, side, side case. But do we also have a pair? Could we use sine law? But I'm not going to do it today because I'm biased, right? But down the road, you can do whatever you want. And if you want to try this, you're going to get the same answer regardless. So let's just draw up our triangle real quick here. I'm just going to put in numbers here, 75, 8, 7.85. And this is Q, P, R. It's asking for R or Q, so it doesn't really matter. I'm going to solve for this one first because 8 is the longest side. Longest side, remember that. So I expect the largest angle to be located right here. Okay, so cosine of Q is going to be, what's the pattern? It's going to be two sides added, one subtracted. What are you going to put that back here? Side Q, correct? Q squared. And then you go P and R, P squared plus R squared. I just call it the other two. I don't care what they are, but Q goes here. Then it's 2 times P times R down here. So let's solve that now. I'm going to zoom in to that a bit more. So let's go ahead. Cosine of Q is P squared, which is 7.85. I just calculated that, plus R squared, which is 5. It's a cross angle R, minus Q squared, which is 8. All over 2 times the first side times that second side up here. And here's where I would discourage you from doing it all in one shot. I'm going to ask you to just go do the top, write that number down, then do the bottom, write that number down. So grab your calculators. Good practice. 7.85 squared plus 5 squared minus 8 squared. That's 22.6225. Sometimes it keeps going, then we just go dot, dot, dot. For the bottom, it's 2 times 7.85 times 5. 78.5. Watch this. It's positive, therefore acute. My angle that I'm expecting will be acute. Down the road, we'll have negatives there. Okay. Let's divide this. I'm okay with trains here, choo-choo trains, because it is true. This is the same as that is the same. If we divide that, I'm just going to go to my calculator, copy paste. So it's going to be that divided by 78.5, and that is 0.28, and that continues. That continues. Do not round. So guess what? Here's my final. If you want angle Q, watch this. If you just want angle Q, that's all right. But cosine still needs to show up somewhere, and it shows up as cosine inverse. On the other side, you can pick if you want this part or the decimal. I tend to put down the decimal. And here is your answer. So I go second cosine, and then I just copy paste, right? Paste that into it, and you get 73.25 degrees. So guess what? It's basically 3 lines, right? If you do it the way I did it here, it's 3 lines and you're done. Does it make sense that it's 73? It does, right? Because 8 is a little longer. 8 is a little longer than 7.85. So we did expect Q to be slightly larger than 70. And now we can find R using sum of 180 property. We get 36.75. So you found Q and R just like that. Could you use cosine law again to find R? Sure. I would say that's a waste of time, right? So don't do it if you don't have to. We're almost done. So this is cosine law. I mixed up both scenarios in A and B, right? Here I used the SSS formula, and up top I used the SAS formula. How do we find the height of this thing? This is a repeat of yesterday. I'm going to do C right here. That's the height. What do you need for the height of a triangle? You need the slant. To find the height of this is the height right here. It's a 90 on either side. But I'm gonna go PQ, right? Side PQ, the slant that I already know, times, is it sine or cosine? You gotta be careful. We're going back to sine, right? Sine of P. So we go 5 centimeters times sine of 70. And that is 4.70 centimeters. So just like that, you found the height of this triangle as well. What's the area of this triangle? The base, which is 8, times height divided by 2, right? So I could ask that as well. I hope this made sense. Could you use this slant right here? Yeah, you could use, what is P? 7.85? 7.85 times this angle, which is 36.75. Let's see if it adds up. 7.85 times sine of R, which is 36.75. Hey, 4.70 rounded, right? You get the same answer. So it does add up. Okay. I'm going to ask you to practice what we've learned. Yeah, I'm going to ask you to go to 26 here. I'm going to ask you to solve the triangles on the following pages. So I'm going to go page 26 to 28. This is cosine law only. Cos law only. And I'm probably lying a little bit because technically you have to start with cosine law, but then if you switch over to sine law, that's okay. It's okay. Your answers might be off by 0.01, but that's a natural thing. You will not lose marks for that. So I want you to use to work through these pages. I will walk around and see what you get. All right. So some work time there. Questions on 26? That way you know you're on the right track. So what I said is do 26 to 28, and I think you made big strides towards that. The key is posted. I will also say this though, for home, I would say if you were comfortable with what you were doing, just leave this for now. I would say pages 31 to 33, you choose a law. Choose law. So now I'm mixing it up. I'm throwing either one at you. It could be a sine law scenario, it could be a cosine law scenario. The key is on page 34. And so when you go to 34, it's just all the triangles just filled in. The angles are not rounded to 2 decimals. So you're just going to have to like see if you're close enough, right? That's all you're going to have to do there. But I would say leave cosine law right now. Just focus, well, unless you, I'm not discouraging you. It's like, I'll never stop you from keeping, just go ahead and finish those. But these are, I would say, do every other one to see if you know what you're supposed to do. Yeah. Well, yes. But you can only start with one, right? So it has to be either sine law, cosine law, and then once you know more, you can do whatever you want. You can stick with sine law, you can go stick with cosine law, it doesn't matter. Yeah, good question. All right, that's it for today, guys.